Hillary, she's faced the national press for well over a decade with an amount of coverage many politicians would kill for. But that's not the way that her campaign sees it. According to a Bloomberg column today, the campaign views the press as hostile. And Bill Clinton, he's been quoted as saying that if reporters cover the candidate's public records better, Hillary should be way ahead in the polls. On the flip side, conservatives, they feel the quote-unquote liberal media is just one giant fan club for Hillary, glossing over the more significant concerns about her past. Now, recently, I spoke with the author of Whitewash, What the Media Won't Tell You About Hillary Clinton, but Conservatives Will, Tim Graham, and someone who doesn't believe the press is biased, Director of Free Press Organization Josh Silver. Here's some of our conversation about Hillary and her press coverage. Guys, thanks for the time.
Sure.
Thank you, Rich.
All right, Tim, I'm going to give you first crack at this. Even though the general consensus is she's been investigated probably more than anybody else, you still think the media's had kid gloves with her?
Yes. We have a new book out called Whitewash that says exactly that. There's the idea that she's been tremendously investigated by the news media is not true. You know, we expect our news media to be fair and balanced and hard-hitting, and with Hillary Clinton, they've been unfair, imbalanced, and soft-soapy.
What about that, Josh? You buy that they've taken a soft-handed approach to her compared to her competitors?
That is so absurd, Rich, I have to say. I mean, they've been investigating Senator Clinton for years at incredible lengths, while at the same time we're looking at an administration now, President Bush, who has, lied his way into war and many argue should be impeached. The fact is that the media, it's really not about liberal versus conservative. The media doesn't treat liberals a different way than conservatives so much as the media itself has turned elections into a joke. They focus on celebrity. They focus on trivial issues like Clinton's cleavage or Obama perhaps going to a Muslim school or Giuliani's affairs, when they're not covering substantive issues about what the candidates actually stand for.
You know, Tim, I took a look at Whitewash, another plug there for the book. Among the people you talk to get the answer we're getting tonight, though, they include the likes of Rush Limbaugh, Gingrich, Hannity, Ann Coulter, Mark Levin, for crying out loud. Not exactly people that anyone's going to put in the objective category, or certainly confused with the liberal media bias. You knew the answer to these guys before you asked, right?
Well, the important concept here is, yeah, they're conservatives, I'm conservative, Brent Bozell is conservative, and the idea simply is that I don't know what Josh is talking about if he thinks the news media has been doing a fierce job of investigating Hillary Clinton. We went to the conservative hosts and journalists and leaders to basically say, why is it that we have a news media that can't do the job, and why is it that a conservative alternative media really has to step up and do the heavy lifting that the news media simply won't do? And that's really what we've tried to focus on. We don't have any optimism that when it comes to this next year of a campaign cycle, that we're going to get a news media that really does a good job of investigating who she is and, more importantly, what she's done over the last 15 years. It's all a blank slate.
Can't you make the argument, Josh, that they've gone after Obama as hard as Hillary, or against certainly Giuliani as his background? Is she really being singled out?
No, not at all. You're absolutely right. And the fact is, I want to know from Tim, what does conservative even really mean? I mean, you say you're a conservative. We've got a so-called conservative White House that's run up $1 trillion deficit. They're getting into people's privacy at homes. You know, the whole idea of liberal and conservative has been turned on its head, and it's really, as Jon Stewart said, it's hurting America. The fact is, people have this false mythology based upon folks like Tim talking about this idea of the liberal media, and it actually polarizes the American people so that they believe that their neighbor is conservative and they're liberal, when in fact the majority of Americans are fed up with a corrupt political system, a narrow political debate, and this kind of discussion like Tim is having only compounds the problem.
So we think Hillary Clinton's not a divisive figure? Or not to mention Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart is part of the liberal media. Jon Stewart, most of his jokes and barbs are directed exactly at this president and his vice president and the Republicans and the conservatives. And so, obviously we have a liberal media and a conservative media, and if Josh wants to put his fingers in his ears and sing la 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 or kumbaya, and that most of the people in this country aren't on one side of the fence or the other. He's the one that's dreaming. The fact of the matter is we do have a real culture war in this country. We have a real ideological battle in this country, and conservatives are ready to engage in it, and so is Hillary. You can hear her. She doesn't go to a left-wing union hall and say, I'm your girl against the vast right-wing conspiracy, and Josh gets to say that she's not divisive or that most Americans don't see her that way.
Question for both you guys. In an area where everybody knows we're driven by the almighty buck or by the rating point, what story is the media intentionally sitting on Hillary that would be negative to her campaign out of great affection for the senator from New York? What stories are they not covering about Hillary almost to try and give her a free pass? And I'll let you start with that, Tim.
Well, the newest one, of course, it's not completely ignored, but it certainly is downplayed. Norman Shue, this bundler of hers that raised $850,000 for her, when he's convicted after evading arrest for a very long time. This is a guy who is, has a serious problem, and the Clinton campaign did a terrible job of actually screening its own donors, just like they did a terrible job in '96, where they were allowing all kinds of donors from Asia to make donations into the American political process. That's certainly something that makes average Americans disillusioned about the process. That's a story that they're really not doing.
Tim, here's what's wrong with your argument. The fact is anything that goes against your so-called conservative ideology, you call liberal in order to dismiss it, because both sides are corrupt. Both Democrats and Republicans are taking way too much special interest money. The whole electoral process has been corrupted by money. This is not a debate about whether Clinton and the other main four anointed candidates. Let's keep in mind, the media has anointed about 4, maybe 5 if you include Edwards, candidates. The rest have been completely marginalized by the press. But really, you're just using this as smoke and mirrors so that anytime a conservative is attacked, you just say it's liberal and therefore not valid.
No, I think that's not true. I think you need to read the book, Josh. I'll get you a copy. But the fact of the matter is that we understand that there is a conservative and there's liberal and there's lots of things that the press talks about that aren't ideological at all. You know, we only respond when there's a double standard. Let's have a news media process that's nonpartisan. Let's have a news media business that handles both sides. I am with you about let's have more substance, let's have more policy talk, let's have less horse race. Everybody says they're for that. I'm certainly for that. But what we need really is fairness and balance. We're not getting that, and I think everybody would profit if we could do that.
Well, I'll make that the last word. Tim, Josh, I appreciate a few minutes from both of you. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, Rich.
Sure.
And it's time now to see what